So, when you picture the languages of Pakistan, what comes to mind? Probably Urdu, right? Or Punjabi? Maybe Pashto? But what if I told you that, tucked away in the high glacial valleys of Baltistan, there's this language with incredibly deep ancient Tibetan roots? Yeah, you heard that right. We're going to dive into the amazing story of Balti.
It's a really good question, isn't it? How did this happen? We're about to go on this amazing linguistic journey to figure out how a language from one huge cultural world ended up not just surviving, but thriving in a totally different one. And it was all preserved for centuries by the very mountains that walled it in.
You know, this quote really gets to the heart of it. It's from a traveler who just stumbled upon Balti way back in 1986. And it just perfectly captures that feeling of discovery, right? Like you're just walking along and suddenly you find this living bridge between ancient Tibetan heritage and modern South Asian life. It's this incredible linguistic treasure just hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so what exactly makes Balti such a linguistic anomaly? Let's get our bearings and start to unpack the details of this really unique language. All right, first up, let's talk numbers. We're looking at roughly 290,000 speakers. Now, that's not a tiny language about to disappear, but it's not huge either. The really important thing here is that it's super concentrated in one specific part of the world. And that concentration, well, that's absolutely key to its whole story.
So where exactly is this place? Well, the heartland of Balti is the Baltistan region of northern Pakistan. You'll hear it in towns like Skardu, Shigar, and Ganchi. But it also spills over the border into India, into this one village called Turtuk, which was actually part of Balti until 1971. And of course, like with many languages, you've got communities of speakers who've moved to Pakistan's big cities, like Karachi and Rawalpindi.
Okay, to really get where Balti comes from, you kind of have to look at its family tree. It's part of the big Tibetic language family for sure, but it sits on a very specific branch, the Western branch. So what that means is it's a much closer cousin to languages like Ladakhi and Puric than it is to the main Tibetan you'd hear in Lhasa. And that's what gives it its own unique sound, its own vocabulary.
All right, so to figure out why this Tibetan language is spoken where it is today, we have to jump in a time machine. We're going way back, to the time of a massive empire that literally planted the seeds of this language in a whole new land.
So the story kicks off way back between the 7th and 9th centuries. The Tibetan Empire was expanding, and as it grew, soldiers, monks, and traders brought Old Tibetan right along with them. For the next 700 years, this whole area was known as Little Tibet. I mean, it was this flourishing Buddhist region. Then, a huge cultural shift happens. Between the 14th and 16th centuries, pretty much the whole population converts to Islam. Now, this changed their beliefs, their identity, everything, but the language stuck around. The one thing that did change, though, was that the original Tibetan script started to fade away, and the language became more of an oral tradition.
And this chart really shows you just how dramatic that transformation was. I mean, you go from a land of Buddhist monasteries and Tibetan mantras carved into rocks to a place where Islamic faith and South Asian culture are front and center. It's a massive change, and yet, and this is the amazing part, through all of that, this ancient language somehow survived. Okay, so here's the really crucial point. All of this history, this incredible isolation, it turned Balti into something super special, especially for linguists. It basically became a linguistic time capsule.
So what do we mean by linguistic time capsule? Well, think of it like this. It's a language that, because it was so isolated, held on to all these ancient features, sounds, grammar, words that have totally disappeared from its more famous relatives. Because Balti was cut off first by mountains and then by culture, it just didn't go through the same changes as, say, Central Tibetan.
So, what does that actually sound like? Well, it means Balti still uses sounds that have been lost everywhere else. Let's take a perfect example, the word for tiger. Okay, in Old Tibetan, it was steg. You can hear that hard g at the end, right? Steg. Now, in modern Central Tibetan, that sound has softened away completely. It's pronounced more like ta. But in Balti, they still say steg. It's such a tiny difference, but that little sound represents 1,000 years of history. It's literally like hearing an echo of the ancient Tibetan Empire. So the story of the spoken language is just incredible, right? But what about the written word? Oh man, that's a whole other journey of loss, and now, rebirth. Okay, so for centuries, Balti was written down using that beautiful, elegant Tibetan Uchin script, the same one you see in Buddhist texts.
But after the conversion to Islam, that was swapped out for a modified Arabic Persian script. Over time, though, the language became mostly just spoken. The original script fell out of use. But, and this is the exciting part, that's changing right now. There's this amazing grassroots movement by local scholars and young people to bring back the original Uchin script, connecting the language back to its deep literary roots.
And this quote, it's from a lama who's trying to put together a dictionary more than 100 years ago. It really makes you realize the incredible, painstaking effort that language preservation takes. It puts into perspective just how passionate and dedicated the people are who are trying to revive the Balti script today. I mean, it's not an easy job, but it is so vital.
Okay, so this language has survived for centuries against all odds. But what does the future actually hold for Balti in our super fast-paced modern world? Let's take a look at both the threats and, more importantly, the signs of hope.
This really is the big question, isn't it? It's what educators, linguists, and the Balti people themselves are all asking. Is this language a fading echo of the past, or is it a voice that's actually getting stronger?
And the language really is at a crossroads. The threats are definitely real. You've got urbanization, people moving to cities, the dominance of Urdu in schools, and young people naturally shifting towards Urdu and English. But there is so much hope. You have this growing number of poets and musicians creating new art in Balti. You have educators working hard to restore pride in the language. It's really becoming this powerful symbol of highland resilience and cultural identity.
You know, when you boil it all down, Balti is so much more than just some linguistic curiosity. Yeah, it might be hidden away in these high-altitude villages, but it is anything but silent. It's a living, breathing language with a deep, powerful past and a future that is absolutely worth fighting for. It truly is a voice that still speaks, still sings, and still belongs.